We meet, last year we did every Thursday for a while, maybe 9 months or so. This year I'm just going to do once a month, one Thursday a month. Anybody who's not clear, this is not a Refuge Recovery meeting. This is a teacher-led. As the founder of Refuge Recovery, I am offering a monthly opportunity to learn and practice and communicate, discuss Refuge Recovery. And last year we went all the way through the book, through all of the chapters and all of the meditations. And this year I'm just going to kind of jump around and pick different topics, although we started last month in February with the First Noble Truth and in particular the importance of the inventory and of really looking at all of the suffering that we experience as addicts and as human beings. Some of our suffering has everything to do with being an addict. Some of our suffering has nothing to do with being an addict. And important to see the distinction between those two things. And this month, tonight, I want to move on to the second truth and reflect on the inventory and meditate a bit on the causes, the conditions, the suffering in our lives that has likely influenced our experience of being addicts, and have some discussion about the second noble truth, and that's the topic for tonight. The repetitive craving that we all experience, and that all, according to Buddhism, that all sentient beings experience, all human beings. We can keep it in the human realm. Everyone experiences repetitive craving. It is absolutely normal. Even your, what we call normie friends, non-addicts, still experiencing repetitive craving. And so in Refuge, we take our time to do an in-depth, detailed inventory on what are some of the conditions, possible causes, underlying factors in our life, as we reflect back on our life, that, this second noble truth, the Buddha's word was tanha. And tanha translates, often we translate it as craving, as clinging, but the literal translation is thirst. That all of us are thirsty, right? So the alcoholics are like, yeah, I'm fucking thirsty. But if addiction is manifesting as, in relationships, so it's like, yeah, thirsty. Like, what was that thirst clinging to in relationships, or food, or sex, or, this term thirst, which is very close to lust, very close to craving, very close to that feeling, the way we define it in the book, of that feeling of I can't be happy until I get. That delusion that our mind tells us, that addiction shows up as I can't be at ease until I satisfy this craving. And then that impulsiveness, compulsion that we experience as addicts, that drives us into not just having the thought, but obeying it. Not just having the feeling and the craving, but all of the suffering in our life that we were trying to avoid and ended up creating more and more of in our active addictions. There's definitely a school of thought, a bit more. There's many schools of thought of like, well, why are we addicts? And you can ask yourself that, maybe you hold some beliefs of why you are an addict. Assuming that if you're coming to a Refuge Recovery event, you are identifying as an addict on some level or not. Maybe, I know there's a new movement about like sober curious, and you're not really knowing that you're an addict, but you're just curious about it. So maybe you don't identify as an addict and you're just curious about what these crazy Buddhist recovery people have to say. But by the time we, if and when we acknowledge that we're addicts, there is a question. It's natural to wonder, well, why am I an addict? And there's definitely a school of thought that says, well, it's genetic. It's a family disease. You had some alcoholism in your genes. You were born an alcoholic, a drug addict, a sex addict, a food addict. Like it was just passed down to you by your ancestors. Maybe that makes sense to you. There's a school of thought that says it's always traumatic events in our lives. That some sort of trauma. There's like Gabor Mate. Many people like Gabor Mate. I'm a fan myself. That cool book that he wrote, Realm of the Hungry Ghosts. Using a Buddhist, even though it has no real Buddhism in it, he does encourage mindfulness. But what a cool title! In the Realm of the Hungry Ghost. And and he has this just rigid view. He believes that every single one of us addicts has trauma as the root cause of addiction. And I've actually hung out with him a bunch of times, and he says, anybody, any addict that would say, well, I had a wonderful childhood. I didn't have any trauma. I just became an addict. He says, give me 5 minutes with that person and I'll identify the trauma in their life that led to their addiction. I don't feel, that's his view. I don't actually have that. I'm not as convinced as him that it's always trauma or that it's always genetic. I feel like there's maybe also another school of thought that doesn't even matter why. That actually, why am I an addict? On some level, perhaps is the wrong question. And that it's just acknowledging the reality is I am one. Pleasant childhood, painful childhood, lots of trauma, not much trauma. It doesn't matter. What matters is the solution, the recovery, the abstinence, and the actions that will lead to freedom, to recovery. I tried to strike a tone in Refuge that was leaving it actually a little bit more up to you. And this whole second truth inventory is for us to explore these questions for ourselves rather than as a program saying, this is it. But let's explore it. Let's investigate it. Let's do this inventory. Let's look at our pain. Let's look at our, at every aspect, our fears, our cravings, our patterns. And through a in-depth investigation, come up, see for ourselves, come to understand for oneself. And again, I also want to come back to that middle place where whether or not it ever becomes really clear and obvious, or we assign the meaning to like, well, my parents were alcoholics, or because of course there's exceptions. There's people that grow up in families of addicts that aren't addicts. There's siblings that grow up in the same house and one of them becomes an addict and one of them doesn't. So it's not always that. There's people that have lots of trauma that don't become addicts. So it's not like trauma is always going to lead to addiction. There's lots of people that heal their trauma and their wounds and have the ordinary human suffering that everyone has, but don't have that suffering that we have of addiction. So I don't know what it is for you. And that's where, and it's really in the spirit of Buddhism, which is rather than telling us, it's inviting us to find out for ourselves. All of the Dharma is this offering of like, hey, come and check this out and see for yourself. Come to understand out of your own efforts. Do the work, do the meditation, do the inventory, do the investigation into the causes and conditions of your own mind, of your own habitual patterns, and then find the antidote. Like, oh, when I do that, I suffer. I'm going to try to stop doing that. When I cling like this, I suffer. I'm going to try to stop clinging. This repetitive craving that I've been obeying has caused me and others a lot of suffering. I'm going to practice some renunciation. I'm going to stop obeying those thoughts and feelings. Through the practice of mindfulness, through the practice of compassion, through the practice of forgiveness. So I want to dive into a meditation, but before I do, a little warning, a little encouragement that all of you who've done this Second Truth inventory know, we start in the deep end. We start with a question about what is your most painful memory? So I'm going to go through that in the meditation. I'm going to ask you to reflect on the pain, on the, what is the mind holding on to? But I want to encourage gentleness. I want to encourage you to trust yourself if it's too much with your eyes closed, if you're really getting flooded with unbearable sensations, emotions, thoughts. Feel free, it's our job as the meditator, it's your job as the student, as the meditator, to take care of yourself. I can't do that for you, but I want to encourage you to not push too hard. But also, don't avoid this shit. If we never turn towards it, if we never approach it, it's the stuff that's festering in us that is going to create relapse. We do this work so that we can get free. It is relapse prevention to heal, to turn towards, to see clearly, and to change our relationship to the pain that we've experienced and caused in this lifetime. Avoiding, ignoring, suppressing is what we were doing in active addiction. Now we're in recovery. We've got to stop avoiding, ignoring, suppressing, and start feeling. But do that in your own time, at your own pace. Be gentle. This is a long-term process. You don't have to do it overnight. You can't do it overnight. I hope that helps. I really want to set the stage of inviting you to take full responsibility for your own practice, and that if it feels like it's too much and sitting there is too much and you need to open your eyes and you need to do some pacing, walking meditation as you reflect on the questions, do that. If you need to take a break, do that. I hope that's helpful. I hope that makes sense. I also want to say, with that permission and encouragement to be gentle, I also want to have a big, deep encouragement to turn towards your pain. It's already there, it's not going anywhere. And this kind of turning towards it will be healing. This is the kind of suffering that one of my teachers said, there's the kind of suffering that creates more suffering. It's like what we're doing, trying to avoid our, in our addictive, habitual patterns, and we're suffering, and we're trying to, our avoidance was just creating more suffering. And then there's the kind of difficulties, the kind of suffering that leads to the end of suffering. What we're doing in the second truth inventory, if it's uncomfortable, if it's painful, if it feels like, oh, I'm suffering about this truth about my life, about my past, about my mind, it's the kind of suffering that will lead to the end of suffering. It's worth doing. It's necessary to do, however long it takes. This is the path. So find a way to sit upright, relaxed when you're ready. Allowing your eyes to be closed. Take a couple minutes to just settle into mindfulness, present time, non-judgmental awareness of the body. Relax the places of tension that you can relax, around the eyes, the brow, the jaw. Breathing in, feel the sensations created by the breath at the nostrils. Breathing out, soften your belly. Often we hold grief and craving and a tightness in our stomach. See if you can soften your belly. Bringing attention to the back to the breath when it gets involved in thinking. Just resting in the present for now, breathing in and out with mindfulness. Thoughts in the background, the past behind us, the future in front of us, the present right here, sitting, listening, breathing. Bring the intention to meet whatever arises with compassion, with friendliness. Setting the aspiration, perhaps saying to yourself, may I be at ease. May I learn to be at ease with myself just as I am, with all of the difficulties, painful experiences of my past. May I be at ease. May I meet any painful thoughts and feelings that arise with mercy, compassion. And then begin to engage your thinking mind rather than ignoring it. To reflect, to investigate your life. Allow your memories to come in. Think about early childhood. Maybe remember where, when you were born. What do you know about the environment that you were born into? The stories we've heard about our parents, what they were like before we were born, when we were born. Reflecting on what the first few years of life before we remember might have been like. What might it have been like in that home, that environment? How much were our parents suffering? Was there addictions? Was there conflicts? Reflecting on earliest memories. What are the things that come back? Being a toddler, a child, a kid. And soften your belly if it gets tight around any pain you're remembering, fear. Did you feel loved? Did you feel seen? Did you feel like you got the appropriate attention that you needed? Or was there too much attention, overbearing, controlling? Was there violence in our homes? Judgment, criticism, shaming? Reflecting on being in adolescence and going through puberty and coming into our sexuality. For many of us, there was abuse. There was inappropriate, painful sexual experiences. Meeting those memories with as much compassion as we can. Softening the belly around the grief or anger. I notice my jaw getting tight around some of the memories. And I release my jaw to just let it be a memory. Soften my belly. Not resisting, but turning towards with the willingness to feel, with mercy, with compassion for our own pain. Reflect on your life being a young adult, maybe when you first fell in love, close friends, wanting to feel part of, wanting to belong. As you reflect on your life, the heartbreaks, the losses, the adverse, traumatic experiences, if you've had some. You can do this reflection almost like a Tonglen meditation, as we do in Refuge, breathing in the painful memories, breathing out compassion towards them. Softening the belly is an act of compassion. The first question in the Second Truth Inventory is, what are your most painful memories? What happened? And how have you been carrying these memories with us? And how did our addictions affect these memories? Or how did these experiences affect our addiction? What are we holding? How thirsty did it make us? Wanting to avoid, to replace, to ignore. Connected with this, I ask you to reflect on, are there things that you've been keeping in? Secrets or experiences that you swore you would never talk about? Now is the time to let them out. Our recovery depends upon it. Reflecting on any violence or abuse, neglect, inappropriate sexual experiences, abuse, coercion, rape, molestation, objectification, exposure. With compassion, softening the belly, grieving. Sadness is the appropriate response. It's okay to feel it, to tend to it. And as we reflect on the painful parts of our lives, can you remember when the first time when you started to want to escape the reality of your life, of your situation, when you had that first drink, drug, your relationship to sugar, sex, the process, addictions, what would later develop into a process addiction? Did it give you some relief in the beginning? There's that often invisible line in our lives that we crossed over into addiction from what was once the solution becoming the problem. When did that happen for you? Was it always a problem? The maladaptive strategy of escapism? Coming again into the present, letting go of the past, these memories, these emotions. Feel your body here, sitting, breathing. Return to kindness and compassion as much as you can. May I be at ease. Again, releasing tension in the torso, softening the belly. And begin reflecting on your current relationship to pleasure and pain. The second foundation of mindfulness, that which we perceive as pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. What's it like these days, whether you're fairly new to recovery or have been at it for years, perhaps decades? What's your relationship with pleasure like these days? Do you still use pleasure to avoid pain? Do you ever use physical pain to avoid emotional pain? Even in recovery, the repetitive craving continues. Even after we stop the substance or process addictions, we still have this instinctual drive towards pleasure, away from pain. How does it manifest these days? What do you think you need to be happy? Is there a part of you that still is craving for a material solution? If I just had more money, more success, then I'd be happy. And this last piece, take a couple minutes with this. Let your mind sort of free associate, fantasize. What would your life look like? What might it feel like if you were free from craving? Free from the delusional thought, I can't be happy until I get. But of course, still having the ordinary and healthy desires of being human. Desire feels more like I want, but I'm completely at ease without getting. What would your life be like if you were free from craving? And again, engaging mindfulness with the body, disengaging from thinking about the past or the future. Again, feeling the contact with the cushion, the chair, the couch that you're sitting on. Feel the breath entering and exiting through the nostrils, the belly rising and falling. And lastly, just meeting yourself with some appreciation, some gratitude for doing this hard work of healing, of recovery, of turning towards the willingness to feel, the willingness to forgive, to develop the wisdom and compassion that will set us free through our own efforts, through our internal transformation. And you're doing the work, you're showing up and asking the right questions of yourself. When you're ready, you can allow your eyes to be open and stretch. Shake it off if you need to. And return to the conversation, the Zoom room. If you haven't done this inventory yet, I encourage you to do it. In the book, I do say, you don't have to, if you're just getting sober, if you're just getting into recovery, if you're brand new, connect, come to meetings, develop your meditation practice, connect with community, with Sangha. Give it a couple of months maybe before you dive into the inventories. If you're, that it's okay to just get a little bit of a foundation for, at least for a couple months. You don't have to do this on day one. But very important to do it. And, to get a mentor and to dive in to doing this. I don't know if everybody's aware, but we have had a little bit of an issue with people being willing to mentor and people, procrastinating against doing the inventory. So we shifted it, this year we kind of shifted the suggestion saying, like, if you're working on your inventory, you can start mentoring each other, a kind of co-mentorship. You don't have to have completed all of this, but if you're working on it and somebody, asks you, make yourself available, help each other through this. This is what we're doing in peer-led, mutual help society recovery programs. We're helping each other. I heard someone the other day say, someone had asked them, or they had asked someone to mentor them, and the person said, I only have 9 months, I can't mentor you. And I'm like, 9 months? Like, that's plenty of time. Totally, like, work on the inventory a bit and mentor each other. This is totally an aside, but I do want to share it. I was in a Refuge meeting this morning, and we were doing appreciative joy meditation. And when I was thinking about the benefactors, when you're thinking about like your teachers, and so I was thinking about like my Dharma teachers, but then all of a sudden, these 3 guys showed up in my mind, which were the 3 guys that helped me get sober in 1988 in juvenile hall. These 3 guys that were, and none of them had more than a year sober, and they were young guys, and they were showing up to the jail that I was in and bringing in 12-step meetings, and like these 3 guys helped me get sober. And like when I got out of lockup and the group home and all of that stuff, they were there, they took me to meetings, and they were doing service. And they were probably hadn't completed all of their, but they were doing it. And we all sort of did it together. We were a bunch of young people getting into recovery together. And as far as I know, and this like statistically is fucking crazy, but as far as I know, all 4 of us are still sober 33 years later. I know that I think that all 3 of those guys and myself are still in recovery 33 years later, because they threw themselves into service, and so did I. And it's really, sorry, my sister just walked in. Hi, sister. It's really like, I don't know, that was an aside. It's not what I wanted to talk about, but I also want to encourage that, of course. So this inventory, we throw ourselves into it when you're ready. And if anybody hasn't done it, I just highly, highly encourage it. part of the reason I made this so intense in Refuge is because I think it's one of the reasons why people relapse so much in some of the other recovery programs, because this is the underlying shit that people don't want to turn towards and feel and resolve and have some resolution and some forgiveness and some compassion around, that drives people back to the substances or behaviors. I really believe that by turning towards this, we have much higher potential for establishing and maintaining long-term recovery than ignoring it, because it's in here. It's in our mind. These are our memories. This is our life. And this is the Buddha's teaching, that you can get free in this lifetime through our own efforts. And I've seen through my own experience that it works really, really well. So what are your thoughts? What is your experience? What are your questions about Refuge Recovery's second Noble Truth practice? Raise your hand. Richard, I saw you had your hand up earlier and you put it down. You're welcome to jump in now. Raise your hand in the box. I see some chat going on. Yeah, Richard, go ahead and.
Yeah, thank you, Noah. Appreciate it. Yeah, this is a deep dive with the second truth inventory for sure. You know, going into some of this material just brought up all kinds of memories and trauma and all kinds of stuff. So I'm glad what you said in the beginning is like, if it gets to be too much, then back off from it, you know, and take a break. So thanks for that warning, for that permission, I guess. The thing, I'm looking at it right now, the thing that comes to me is like, when did you first feel like escaping your reality? That's such a huge question. It's an excellent question, by the way, but it's just huge because, and there's another one in here about getting attached to material things. I noticed in my own life, I actually escaped reality by getting attached to spiritual things in the church where I was raised. And so I found spiritual bypassing very early on in life. And it's just another way to escape reality. But it's not really addressed here, but it is in that question about when did you escape reality? What did you do for it? So I just wondered if you could address that, using spiritual methods to escape reality.
Well, you know, one of the places where it came up for me, and you know, towards the end of that reflection, and one of the later questions in the inventory is that, what do you think you need to be happy? Mm-hmm. And I feel like for a long time, my answer is like, I have to be enlightened, right? Like I need a spiritual solution. I need to be awake to be happy. And which even that is this sort of like craving, and not a total radical acceptance of like, well, here I am unenlightened at 33 years sober. Like here I am still, like a lot of progress, but not totally free. And that idea that I have to be totally free rather than having room for life as it is on life's terms, and accepting our own imperfections and continuing to work towards positive change internally, externally. But for sure, it's so normal when you get really excited about recovery and spiritual practice to go a little overboard and start kind of going into fantasy world about it. It takes some time to become grounded in our practice and in our understanding of the Dharma. And I don't know if I'm totally addressing, you know, what your that question about, like, absolutely, we can use practices to avoid. It's one of the things that the Buddha over and over warned against. He said, you know, these concentration practices are very good. They're a part, it's the 8th factor of the path. They're an integral part of the path. But without mindfulness, concentration can be used to just concentrate your attention away from the pain, to ignore, to avoid, and that concentration can become a bypass. And that's one of the reasons why, like, if you're been practicing for a long time and you're still just dragging your attention back to your breath all of the time, there's some, you're missing something. The instructions are foundation of breath, then open to your emotions, open to your mind states, open to the pleasant, unpleasant, so that you're not bypassing or avoiding anything, but you're completely turning towards your whole psychological, emotional, physical reality. And that meditation isn't just about feeling good by avoiding, but it's about feeling your pain and meeting it with compassion. I hope that's helpful. You're welcome. Thanks, Richard. Nice to see you. Jose, jump in. You need to unmute yourself. Did we lose you?
Hey, can you hear me there?
Yeah, there you go. Go.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Noah. You changed my life. You changed so many people's lives. I never met a celebrity. You are a celebrity, man. You are somebody who has making a tectonic shift in the way so many people see the world. Thank you, man. There is a point because where they invite us to abandon our attachments, abandon our discernments, what we know, abandoning our pride, everything and anything and everything in our subconscious that moves us. And it's so fundamentally truth. We are addicts because drugs and processes where all we have to escape, and this practice is just so fundamentally raw. You have to go down to the roots, and this practice, man, today just going through those traumas and things that I hadn't thought of in 15 years. It's popping up like that, and just seeing it and just letting it go and feeling a little bit of, chip of my shoulder, a little bit off, less weight. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Jose, and so glad that you're here and with us. And, the whole thing about me being somebody, I just want to say, like, thank you. And I'm so glad that Refuge is helpful for you and that I've been helpful for you in whatever ways I have. But also, like, the reality is, like, I'm just an addict that's doing this shit to save my own ass, just like everybody else. And, like, I'm no different than anybody. We're all in this shit together, and I just feel so grateful that I found the Dharma young, early in recovery, started practicing, and it just, like, this shit fucking works. So of course I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to share it with others and try to help others recover. And it's, of course it's weird being the founder or all of that, because, like, I just want to be part of this thing. Like, I just created the recovery program that I wanted to exist because it didn't exist and it had never been done before. And I actually asked some other people to do it, and they were like, we're not going to do that. And I have enough arrogance and to be like, well, then I'll fucking do it. So, anyways, thank you, Jose, for the kind words, and I'm glad you're with us. Mike D, jump in.
Hi, Noah. Hi, Sangha. Yeah, I never did that before. Usually with meditations, it's kind of reverse. You start slow, then you go deep. So when you said we go deep first, I was like, shit. But I liked it. That was, wow. That was almost preferable because you end on a lighter heart. Having said that, I don't know. I guess one small question is, like, how do you how do you confront the imposter police, as it were? Like, I usually don't share how long I've been sober, but I'll have 9 years in April. And to this day, I have a huge problem telling people what to do, or like confronting them, or guiding them. And it's like, who the hell are you? Like, what the hell do you know about X, Y, and Z to tell somebody about X, Y, and Z? It's like, I don't know if it's ego. I don't know if it's, or again, the imposter police telling me I'm not good enough, I can't do it. Well, what the hell do you think you are? I don't know. And at the same time, it's like, dude, you almost got 9 years, man. Like, why are you thinking like that? You know?
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, I've got a couple reflections for you, and I imagine that you, so a few things, Mike. It's not your fault that your mind does that, right? Like even naming it imposter, right? It's just like, that's not you. That's just part of what your mind does. And the more we do mindfulness and turn towards the mind, the more you see like, that's just not self. That's just not me. That's just impersonal. It's just the judging mind. It's just the imposter police again. And also this thing around time and like, whoa, if we've been in recovery for a long time, we're supposed to be, more confident or whatever it is. What came to mind for me is, I don't know if you know this story, but the story of the Buddha's enlightenment. He said that, he did 7 years of really intensive practice and study and renunciation. And then and none of it was working because a lot of what he was taught was a bypass. And then he discovered mindfulness and he did mindfulness practice. And he's like, oh, this is it. It's not about avoiding or turning off the imposter. It's about changing my relationship to it. And he started just relating to his mind and saying like, oh, this is just confusion. And he started calling that part of his mind Mara. And he says, Mara is attacking me with judgment and with lust and with cravings. And on the verge of enlightenment, Mara his mind attacks him with lustful thoughts. He's sitting there thinking about sex and lustful thoughts. And, that's that story of like, well, I'd just be happy if I was getting laid and it was this amazing sexual experience. That's, sensual solution. And then his mind attacks him with hatred and resentment and, all of the pain and the resentment. But the final attack of Mara is exactly what you just said. On the verge of enlightenment, whatever the fuck that means, the Buddha's mind says to him, who do you think you are? Just the way your mind says that to you, just the way my mind says that to me, just the way everybody's mind says that to us sometimes. And so I like that story. I think it's helpful because it just normalizes and it's just like, yeah, of course your mind says that to you. Your job is to not believe it. The Buddha just says, I see you, Mara. I see that this is just confusion in my mind. I'm not going to obey it. I'm not going to, it's not going to stop me from being of service. Somebody's asking me for guidance. Do the fucking inventory, meditate every day, go to meetings, call me. And my mind's like, who the fuck do you think you are? Well, I'm just giving the instructions I was given. That's who I think I am. Is that helpful, man?
Yes, thank you. I needed
because that's the real shift that happens. I feel like that's the real, is not that we get rid of those neurotic thoughts. We just stop believing them. And we just see them as they are, which is, in Buddhism, we call it Mara. It's just confused conditioning. And hopefully, I'd imagine your experience has been, certainly my experience was, that the longer I do the right thing, stay sober, meditate, be of service, the less powerful those thoughts are. They have not stopped in my mind. They did not stop in the Buddha's mind. Even fully enlightened, so that was the verge of enlightenment. His mind says, who the fuck do you think you are? And then it keeps coming back even after he's awake. And he says, I had to live my whole life. I no longer took it personal. And that's one of the definitions of what it means to be awake. It's not no negative thoughts. It's just that I'm not identified with what my mind is doing as who I am. I'm no longer believing it. There's that discernment. Some of our thoughts are wise. Some of our thoughts are quite ignorant. And that humility just to be like, oh, I'm thinking that shit. Okay, let that go. Do the right thing. Lotus, jump in, please.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
This is my first time listening to you speak and being present for this meeting that isn't a meeting.
If anybody's doing this in meetings, please tell us. If somebody's doing what I'm doing, giving everybody advice, like that's not a refuge meeting, not kosher.
So I'm grateful, thank you, and it's nice to meet you. So I'm curious to know what you would say to a young Black woman who identifies as queer, who is struggling with their recovery. Like I'm not a victim. I don't identify as a victim. Like I don't rummage through my past trauma, you know, like, oh, this happened to me. But I can see the pathology from back to when I was a kid of just like all the stuff. And like even at conception, like my mom using while she was cooking me in her belly, and just feeling this sense of like I am inherently not cool. Like I'm inherently, like literally to my core, there's something wrong with me. And like what and so it's like, yeah, I know that I'm not a victim, and I know that and I'm, you know, I do the work, like I've been doing the work for years, therapy, blah, da, 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 da. But, you know, there's still this inherent thing inside. And like, I used to be so actively engaged in Buddhism and yoga and like spiritually seeking. And in this past year, and when I relapsed, like I have just been like, I don't care. And there's just been like this dark, I just go inside and there's darkness. There's not this spiritually seeking. I don't care about doing asanas. I don't care about meditation. I don't care. So if you have any words, I would appreciate it. But I would also quickly like to say that this program has been everything to me. And I'm so grateful. So yeah, whatever you got, I would appreciate it.
I was thinking about, so part of me, Lotus, is like, I don't know. I'm not a big, I don't know if I can say anything to you that will really help. I'm one of those people that like, nobody can tell me shit. But since you're asking, that really like, I sort of have that perspective of like, we have to like come to it. Like we have to have that desperation, like, you know, like that but you're here. Like, I'm not a big believer in interventions of like talking somebody into wanting it. You have to want it. You know, like there's millions of people who need recovery. not that many people want it, you know, or are willing to do it. Now you're interesting. I love what you were saying, because you've had periods where you wanted it and you were willing to do it, and you've done the yoga and the meditation and the therapy and you're in a place right now, right? Like some part of the cycle, which is like right now, fuck, I don't even know if I want it right now. I'll give you some of the things that I'm supposed to say. I hope maybe some of them will help. One of the things that the Buddha said about like when we have lost faith, he said it's one of the times where we can remember, just like we did this whole meditation of like remembering our pain. We can also do this kind of reflection of remembering how much you used to believe. Remembering how excited you used to be about like getting on the yoga mat and the meditation cushion and listening to the Dharma talks and coming to meetings and being of service. And, you know, sometimes that reflection on that old faith, even though I'm not really feeling it now, maybe it'll just give a little spark. Just a little like, you know, I'm forgetting right now, but I used to, I used to know, you know, and right now I'm sort of forgetting, or I'm skeptical, or I'm disillusioned, or whatever it is that was happening. So remembering, reflecting on. And then also like if there's some teachings, some books, some people, you know, that like do, you know, sometimes our faith does have to come from outside of us, and we need to get inspired. We need, you know, and like find that teacher that inspires you and listen to them, you know. And I've been, you know, like if you're actually like in a depression or something, sometimes you can be listening to the best fucking music or Dharma talk or whatever it is, and it's just all blah, right? None of it lands because there's just a fog between our true heart and whatever's trying to get in. Then, and I, you know, you're here. I'm also a big fan of like, it's what Sangha does for us, which is just keep showing up. You know, I think in the 12 step, they say like, we will love you until you can love yourself. Which I was always just like, fuck you. Go fuck yourself. Don't love me. You do not have my consent. Get out of here. But there's some truth to that, right? There's some truth to just showing up, even though like, fuck, I don't even want to be here and I don't want to meditate, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to show up and I'm going to talk to you people that I don't like and I think are full of shit. And I'm going to listen to these teachers that I don't like and I think are full of shit. And I'm just going to keep doing it because I used to know that this was the correct path. And so I'm going to try to come back to that faith, confidence, knowing, and I'm going to lean on the people around me. I'm going to lean on the people that look like they're doing a bit better than I am. Look like they have their shit together. You might find out that, you know, they don't as much as they appear to or whatever, but who cares? Like, and then, I don't know if you can muster it, and it's really hard when we're feeling blah or, you know, depressed or whatever it is, and this year of isolation and that kind of story that your mind's telling you that there's something inherently, you know that that's Mara. There's no, you know, that inherently in you is goodness, is beauty, is the ability to be free. That's your inherent nature. That sort of woundedness based on the conditions that you were born into, that's not who, you know, the way that I hear inherent is like what's true at our core. It's not what's true at anybody's core. You know, this is the Buddha's teaching. At our core, we all have Buddha nature. No matter what gender, race, identification, you know, how deeply wounded we were, you know, none of that affects our inherent ability to wake up, and that it's in here. and that we can heal, we can recover, if we're willing to do really fucking hard work, even when we don't feel like it. You know, it's sort of the definition of courage, I think. You know, sometimes like courage is that you know, like when you're feeling strong is courage. Like, no. Courage is when you're doing the shit when you're terrified. when you're feeling blah, or when you're feeling, that's, you know, the courage to do, you know, to walk through the fear, to walk through the mind trying to talk you out of your actual ability. The multiple hindrance attack when Mara's, you know, and you know, this convincing, like it's, you know, maybe other people have Buddha nature, but not you. Maybe other people can recover, but not you. The terminally unique and all of those things. And there is a reality to your experience as a Black queer woman in this culture that, you know, is part of your suffering, is part of the conditions that you have to walk through that I don't as a straight white guy. There, you know, there's a difference there, and you're aware of that, and I'm aware of that, and the solution is the same for us. And it's easier for me to walk through this culture than it is for you to walk through this culture. But the solution of compassion and forgiveness and is the same for all of us. Do you know the story of Angulimala? And I'm not saying this about you, but there's this mass murderer in the time of the Buddha has such bad karma, and he comes to the Buddha, and you know, and he's just like, I'm inherently like, I'm a fucking murderer, like I can't get free. And the Buddha's like, no, actually you can purify your karma, you can get free in this lifetime, no matter what you were born into, no matter what you've done. This is the message of Refuge Recovery. This is the message of the Buddha, that we can recover if we're willing to do the work. And this is why, like, I paused at answering your question, because I can't give anybody willingness. You can't give anybody willingness. That usually has to come from the desperation of like, I've hit every other fucking dead end. I'll give this a try. But I think it's even harder when you're in your place, Lotus, where it's like, well, I did, and I gave this a try, and it used to work, but now I'm like in this plateau, or this, you know, like I've lost faith. It's that dark night of the soul crisis, existential, like, so it feels like a real conundrum, but I see you, and I see you nodding, and I see your tears, and I see something in you that knows that you're on the right path, and that you can get back on the right path, even if it's not as inspiring as it used to be, or fun as it used to be, or feeling as connected as it used to be. Like, we've got to make Dharma practice like brushing our teeth. Like, just fucking brush your teeth. Even when you don't feel like it, you know? I hope that's helpful. I know I really feel like I don't have the answers, but I hope that some of those reflections land somewhere.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. That's probably enough for tonight. I don't even know what I'm going to do next month, but whatever it is, it's going to be awesome, and everyone's getting liberated, so don't miss it. It might be something about mentoring. It might be something about service. I'll figure it out. We'll put it, you know, we'll put out something on the social media. We'll figure out a topic. And this is done for free. But also I'm, Refuge Recovery World Services, nonprofit that supports the whole program. is in financial need of your generosity. The money that you give at the online meetings comes to support us at World Services, but this class is also by donation. So if you can make a donation to World Services, please do. It's also a good part of our practice to be generous, part of our recovery to be of service. Actually, that's the last thing I forgot to say to you, Lotus. I'm going to say it now to all of us, which is sometimes when we're feeling like, just go help someone else. Just go find somebody that's suffering more than you. And drag them out of detox and sit them in front of a Zoom meeting or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes that is all what it takes, is that sort of like, well, I'm fucking suffering a bit, but I bet there's somebody worse off that I could go give some food to on the street. And those sort of acts of service might be the right thing to help us pull us out. So the generosity of donations, if you can. Vanessa posted the link to the donate, and give whatever feels appropriate. Whatever you can give, please give. And many merit that has been developed through our practice and discussion of the Buddha's Dharma, the Refuge Recovery process and path, to be shared outward in all directions with all suffering addicts, as well as all other suffering sentient beings. Together, let's make a positive change on this planet. Thank you for your reflections on these teachings and practices. And see you next month. See you, come to meetings, mentor each other, do your inventories, all that shit. Great to see everybody.